Do we have the right talent, culture, and context to unlock the full value of AI and data? And that's what today's session is all about. We'll explore why talent readiness is the biggest barrier or one of the biggest barrier, to AI adoption in retail, how organizations can build in-house capabilities, and what it takes to drive sustainable business outcomes. We are privileged to have some of the most experienced voices with us today who will not only share practical insights, but also challenge the way we think about building the workforce of the future in retail. So sit back, stay engaged. Let's get into this engaging discussion on how context, not just content, will define the future of retail talent in the era. Let me also introduce the moderator for the session, Dr. Yogesh Kumar Bhatt. Dr. Yogesh Kumar Bhatt is a distinguished leader in corporate education and talent transformation with expertise spanning cloud, data science, and AI. He is a proven innovator and inspiring speaker. He has built businesses, led high impact learning initiatives for global enterprises, and continues to shape the future of talent with his thought leadership. So, welcome, Dr. Yogesh Bhatt. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So before I hand it over to Dr. Bhatt, we also have been contemplating about the fact that how do we start this session, right? And since AI is the talk of the town, and I think every line starts or maybe ends with AI, no conversation can be complete without AI. So we leveraged AI to create a video, and the scenario I faced it back then when I was working, with Walmart. How a category manager converses with a data scientist, and how interesting or boring that conversation can be. We try to make it interesting for this. So I'm going to play that video. It's a short video. I think it will be a good start or good way to get into the session. So just give me a moment. I'll share my screen. Hold on. Once again, I have to also include sound so that all of you can hear. Um, is my screen visible to all? You can just say
Yes,
confirm.
yes.
Okay,
For
great.
Halloween. Do you know what
Hold on. Okay. So I'm just gonna put it in full screen. Here we
these
go.
promotions don't make sense? You're suggesting I put discounts on premium chocolates right before Halloween. Do you know what happens then? Customers buy anyway. Festival season guarantees it. Why would I slash margins when demand is already high?
I get your concern, but the model isn't about intuition. It's about numbers. Statistically, our analysis shows that even during Halloween, targeted discounts increased overall basket size. People didn't just buy chocolates, they added more items to their carts. The uplift was significant.
You keep saying statistical uplift, but I run the stores. If I cut margins here, my P&L suffers. The math looks good on your charts, but on the ground, I lose profit on high demand products. That's not sustainable.
Look, the model considers elasticity, cross sell, and seasonality. It's not just about one SKU's margin, it's about the entire promotion basket. You might lose a little margin on chocolates, but you gain when people buy juices, chips, and gift boxes alongside. The data proves it.
And what if they don't? Models don't face angry customers or unsold inventory. I do. My team has seen promos flop despite perfect statistical predictions. Business isn't just numbers, it's context, timing, and customer behavior that no model fully captures.
But if we ignore the model, we're just guessing. Do you want to base promotions on gut feeling forever? That's riskier than using evidence.
Well, if you're saying so, let me give it a thought and come back.
Yes. So with this, I will hand it over to Dr. Bhatt. Over to you, Dr. Bhatt. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gaurav, and very appropriate video to start the session. Uh, we have all, we can all relate to that, and I can relate to a similar situation many times over. Uh, it's a very classical conundrum. And in fact, I was attending one session sometime back, and and a question was asked, and I think I can ask this question to everyone here. Uh, in whatever you
So,
do.
Dr. But I think sorry to interrupt, there is some distortion in the voice. Is it me?
No, it is there.
Yeah,
There is
maybe
distortion.
maybe the speaker is not modulated properly or something.
Let me see if is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Better?
Yes, much better. Please go ahead, Dr. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just saying that very appropriate video, and I was just saying that I have seen very similar situations multiple times. In fact, this situation ended quite well with a very positive type of thing that yes, I'll think about it. I've seen worse situations. Uh, and it also just I was attending a different event actually earlier today, and a question was thrown to all the audience, and let me throw that question to all the audience. Uh, in whatever you do, you may be in sales, you may be in data science, you may be in whatever. If let's say an AI model tells you something and your gut feel tells you something else, what will you believe? All those who will go by what the model says, can you just raise your hands once? I can't see any hands going up. Okay, right. Very nice. Okay, so there you go, right? And that is the classical conundrum. Uh, Model comes with an evidence, but people have their own gut feel, and what do you believe is always a question. And that is where this topic is very apt. Ultimately, there is no right answer here, but the answer lies in both sides, and the real value lies in how both of you can derive best from the both. And that is where context over content is very right topic here. Uh, because without context, content doesn't matter. And that's what we saw happening. Thankfully, it was going in a positive direction. As I said, it could be worse. And for this topic, nobody better than our speaker today, Iqbal. I will just introduce Iqbal for everyone. But even before I go through her introduction as a background, but I had occasion to know her for last few weeks and multiple interactions just for this and for a few other topics of interest. And I'm really impressed by the kind of depth she brings as well as the kind of passion she brings in data science. And I'm sure everyone can hear her on this topic to learn about that. And I'm personally looking forward to this session. Iqbal comes with more than 25 years of experience as a AI and data science leader, and including being an entrepreneur. She early days she started, where else but in Genpact, earlier called JKS&G, and that is where much of our earlier data science talent groomed. I know many people from there who are in a top positions all over now, including some of very close friends of mine. And from there, she moved into various roles. Important thing here is that she has been very instrumental in setting up data science capabilities in companies like Target and Lowe's, and therefore we can't get anybody better in this topic than Iqbal. As of now, she is co-founder and head of data science at iCustomer. iCustomer is a warehouse native agentic GTM for marketing operations. And before that, she was co-founder of Xylotech. Xylotech was co-developed by Iqbal as a customer data platform, and it was acquired by Terminus in 2021. Uh, Prior to that, of course, Iqbal has an MBA from Xavier Institute of Management and a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, very interestingly, from Delhi University. and she's also a Six Sigma Black Belt and certified Green Belt trainer. So with that, would like to hand it over to Iqbal. Iqbal, keen to hear from you. And but for the audience, Iqbal, of course, will talk about this topic, which is context over content, and share her experience. But after that, we will have a Q&A session between me and Iqbal, and then we'll open the floor for questions to everyone. But in case you get some question, you can just right. You can ask towards the end, or you can type in the chat window. We'll pick it up at the right time. So that's the way we can do the interaction. Over to you, Iqbal.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Thank you for that illustrious introduction. Just to add to what Dr. Bhatt shared, I joined Target in 2006 with the strategic direction to set up an AI analytics capability. That company was, I think, that time $65 billion and not doing a whole lot of analytics. Surprising for me because I came from GE, where everything we did was with analytics. But that was probably true for every retailer at that point in time. Very few retailers were doing high-end data sciences. And this particular subject is very close to my heart because when I had to set up the team, the talent that I was looking for was simply not available, right? I could hire the talent from organizations like MX or G/Genpact, but nobody knew retail. Okay, there was one company doing some sort of retail analytics called Dunhamby, if some of you remember, but that was it. And I think that's where I learned a lot of stuff. So a lot of the stuff that you would hear, and I will give some examples, are from my experience at organizations like Target and Lowe's Home Improvement, Lowe's Foods, AB InBev, and I will not highlight during the example which company it is from, but just to give an idea, these are all large organizations, mostly retail and some CPG kind of structure. So without further ado, I'll dive right into the presentation. Can you see my presentation?
It is visible.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I call it the organizational AI paradox. Why expertise isn't enough. I am sure that there are times you are saying, okay, why I can't get the expert in ML ops? But I have usually seen that for me, in a lot of the cases, I was able to get the experts, but the context that wasn't there used to cause the problem. So this presentation is focused on that. At a high level, this is the agenda. I'll talk about the communication and alignment gaps which cause AI projects to fail. I'll talk about some case studies, but more importantly, I will also talk about what has worked well. If we want to fix this problem, what are the options, what are the solutions, and what does it look like when all these challenges are fixed. Okay, so we are living in what I call the golden age on paper, AI golden age on paper. And why do I say that? Organizations are throwing serious money at this problem, right? We are investing millions of dollars in the best AI talent. The competition for the AI talent is fierce. Everyone wants that engineer from MIT or the PhD who worked on Google AI or the data engineer who built or the data scientist who built the recommendation engine at Netflix. And it's not just about talent, right? Our domain experts, people who have been in insurance for 20 years, who know manufacturing in and out, who know retail customer behavior like the back of their hand, they're very articulate about their challenges now. And they can also pinpoint where AI could theoretically make the difference. And about data, we are literally drowning in it, right? I mean it in the best possible way. The quality is better, the volume is unprecedented, and now we have tools to manage it, right? I mean, when I started as a data scientist, we didn't even have the tools to manage this kind of unstructured data. So we have all the advantages, right? We have the top talent, we have the domain expertise, and we have great data. With this, we would expect AI success stories left, right, and center. But no, that's not the case. There has been a recent study which says that 85% of the AI projects fail to deliver. Not fail to launch, but fail to deliver the business value they promised. These projects make through the approval process, they get the funding, the POCs are done, they are successful, the teams are aligned, but they still end up as expensive lessons learned. And what is more frustrating is that the POCs are great. The demos are wonderful. Stakeholders are very excited. Yes, let's do this. Everybody is convinced that this is the breakthrough that they have been waiting for. But then on the way to production, something happens. The POC that worked so beautifully somehow can't handle the messiness of the real business operations. So we end up in this, strange situation where we have more AI expertise in house, but the business problems that existed 20 years ago are still here. And I'm talking by experience. I know certain people in certain retail GCCs, they are leading some important initiatives. And I'm like, but this was the same problem we had 20 years ago. Why has this not been fixed? So fundamentally, customers are still frustrated, processes are still inefficient, decisions are still being made with gut instead of insights. So this raises an obvious question. I mean, we have the right ingredients. Why isn't the recipe working? Right? So let's look into it. When we look at the organizations that are struggling with AI, we will be surprised to find that they have built what looks like a very solid foundation. And these are what I call the 3 pillars of AI success. I mean, if you don't have these pillars, definitely you will not get AI success. The first is the technical excellence. And this is where I see a lot of companies shine, right? They have got the PhDs in ML from top universities. And these are the people who can debug neural networks in their sleep. Then there are the AI engineers who are fluent in latest algorithms, their PyTorch from their TensorFlow, they are keeping up their latest papers on arXiv, and they can implement cutting edge techniques, which were just research projects a few years ago. Infrastructure, it's amazing, it's impressive. Advanced analytics platforms, cloud computing resources, MLOps pipelines, the technical foundation is there. Again, companies have spent serious money on getting it right. The second pillar is business expertise. So these organizations have the domain experts who have been in their particular industries for decades. I mean, when I joined Target, people had the same experience as my age. So that's not new, right? They understand market dynamics, customer behavior, competitive pressures. And the third pillar is data assets. Again, majority of retailers or even non-retailers have gotten very sophisticated here. They're sitting on rich data sets from multiple sources, customer interactions, operational systems, external market data. The variety and volume would make a data scientist like me from early 2000s weep with joy. I mean, I would have loved to work with this kind of data. So there are historical performance data that can reveal patterns. There is real operational metrics flowing in constantly. We have technical excellence, business expertise, 3 solid pillars that should be enough to build the solid AI foundation that works. But why doesn't it? What I have observed that these pillars don't talk to each other. They have been built in isolation and they exist in isolation. The data scientists are optimizing for model accuracy in one corner. Business experts are frustrated that their requirements are not being met in another corner. And the data assets are being interpreted differently by everyone. So we end up with this, technically beautiful models that solve the wrong problems. Business requirements that can't be translated into feasible AI solutions, and data that's rich in one department's context but meaningless when it comes to another. Summary, it's not a talent problem, it's not a data problem, it's not a technology problem. We have everything. It's the collaboration problem. And until we solve that, we will keep seeing this 85% failure rate, no matter how much we keep investing in these 3 pillars. So let's understand the top 2 pillars because it's about collaboration and data will collaborate if the top 2 pillars learn to collaborate. I hope you can see my slide change. So I'm talking about the AI expert here, and let's start with what they bring to the table. So these are genuinely brilliant people. I'm talking about folks with advanced degree in machine learning, who can, who understand the mathematical foundations, who know when to use random forest versus neural network, who can spot overfitting very easily. They have deep intuitive understanding of what's technically feasible. And when it comes to implementation, they can optimize the code for performance. I couldn't do it when I started. Honestly, that time data scientists were terrible at optimizing code for performance. Build scalable training pipelines. They can create models that are both accurate and efficient. The technical craftsmanship today is actually very impressive. But here's where things start to break down. Most of these experts come from academic backgrounds or companies where the problems are already well defined. I mean, I can give example. When I was working in the finance space, it was very clear that I have to build a model to predict the default rate. Okay, and default was very clearly defined. Okay, so the requirements were extremely clear. But especially in retail, the problem definition itself are messy and ambiguous. I've seen brilliant data scientists spend weeks building a sophisticated forecasting model that, say, predicts the demand with 95% accuracy, only to find later on that the business wanted to know why the demand fluctuates. Not just predict the demand, but why is it moving? The solution was perfect, but it probably solved the wrong problem. And then there is, our natural tendencies as a data scientist. We gravitate towards technical elegance. I mean, who wants to use OLS or Logit anymore, right? We want to use the latest cutting edge algorithm. So we also end up giving a sophisticated solution when probably a simple one would have worked better. And why simple one? Sometimes the complex model is probably using real-time data feeds from 6 different systems. And if these systems go down every Tuesday because there's a batch upload happening, I mean, my sophisticated solution is not going to work, and something much simpler would have worked better for the business. And most importantly, I believe that there is a language barrier. When business stakeholders tells us we need better customer insights, 9 out of 10 data scientists will say, oh, let's cluster. So we think of it as a clustering problem. And both parties are right, okay, but not talking about the same thing. The AI expert loves to optimize for mathematically meaningful clusters. Business stakeholder wants an actionable customer segment that they can understand. I mean, just saying it's a cluster A is not going to help. They really want to know what cluster A is formed of so that they can take the appropriate marketing action. Now let's talk about our second pillar. Yes. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly.
Yeah, please go ahead, Iqbal. I think somebody is unmuted unknowingly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought somebody had a question. Okay, so the domain expert. Let's talk about first what they bring to table. So these are the people who have lived through multiple economic cycles, right? Who have seen operational challenges their industry can throw at them. They know where exactly the bottlenecks are and not where the process manuals are telling. And in regulated industries, they are very, very invaluable, right? Because regulations existed well before the AI was providing us solutions. And now they also have a clear vision of what success looks like from a business perspective, not model accuracy or technical performance. They don't care about that, but they know, but they know that reducing complaint resolution time by 10% is worth more than improving prediction accuracy by 20%. So they understand the competitive landscape, customer expectations, market pressures in the way that we can't learn from textbooks. They know which problems are really worth solving and which ones are just interesting technical challenges. But they also have their limitations. So a lot of times they don't have an idea of what's actually feasible with AI technology. And I'm telling this from experience. I recently got a request from a client saying that, can't we build an AI engine that understands customer sentiment like my marketing person does? Maybe someday, but not with the current budget or timeline. Then there is a solution specification trap. Now everybody has access to the same information, same data. A lot of LLM models can help you answer the question. So a lot of these people, they tend to now get very specific about the solution that they are looking for, and don't describe the underlying problem very well. So they may say, we need an AI chatbot for customer service. The problem is that customers are frustrated because they can't get simple answers question quickly. And chatbot may not be the right solution. But once the business has specified it, that's what the AI team starts building. And some of them even over specify what they want. They give incredibly detailed specifications, like a software product, that this is how they want AI to behave. But those specifications are based on assumptions about what AI can and cannot do. I mean, if somebody tells me that wave your arms really fast and you will fly, it's a very detailed specification, but technically impossible, right? And then there are some who still are not focusing on articulating the problem very well, right? They will, I have heard this, okay, the inventory management is a mess. But what are you talking about? Are you saying that we have too less product on the shelf, or we don't have any product in the store backroom, or we don't have product in the distribution center? I mean, what is the challenge? I mean, one of the problems that we faced in one of the companies I worked for, that there was product in the distribution center, there was too much product in the store backroom, yet there was no product on the shelf. Now, this is something we need to understand, where to focus on. But if we hear this generic statement that inventory management is a mess, AI experts can't really start digging in the right direction. Okay, now let's try to understand how, when these two people with their positives and their challenges work together, what starts to happen. I call it the data scientist curse. When your greatest strength becomes your biggest weakness in collaboration. Okay, so this is the depth versus breadth problem, right? So the AI experts, okay, it's ironic, right? I mean, when we're talking about an expert, very technical people, we would expect that since they're expert in their area, they would also be good at everything else around it. But no, the deeper someone's technical expertise, and again, I'm talking from personal experience, the harder it becomes for them to communicate with non-technical stakeholders. And I understand it, right? I mean, if all I have done is thinking in terms of feature engineering and model validation, I start assuming that everybody else understands it, right? I mean, then I start talking like with confidence intervals and cross validation as my normal vocabulary. Then I just talked about the complexity preference, right? I mean, I have watched data scientists present 3 different modeling approaches to business stakeholders, comparing, say, ensemble methods to deep learning techniques. And so they're saying, let me show you all the sophisticated work I have done. But the business mind is saying, just tell me what to do. And then there's this focus on statistical significance versus the business significance, right? I mean, I may have built an amazing, statistically significant prediction model, but if it costs $100,000 to operationalize that, while it saves me only $10,000, it makes no business sense. So yes, it's statistically significant, but is irrelevant to the business. And perhaps the most damaging of all is the expectation that business folks should intuitively understand technical nuances. So when I'm saying 92% accuracy, we expect them to understand what is 92% accuracy. No, they don't. The business thinks it works 92% of the time. Why is it not working 99% of the time? But this is not how we define accuracy when we talk about it, correct? And then there is the other side, the frustration of the business expert. I mean, they walk into a meeting expecting to discuss how to improve customer retention, and suddenly all they can hear is gradient boosting algorithm, hyperparameter tuning. I mean, it's not that they are not smart. They are very good at what they do. They are very sophisticated at their work. But when we talk in technical lingo, it feels like a foreign language designed to exclude them. Then there is the recommendation gap. Business experts need clear, actionable recommendations. They want to hear, we should prioritize customers in segment A because they are say 4 times more likely to churn. Instead, they get to hear our model shows a probability distribution. We talk a language that they don't understand, and recommendation is not part of it. Also, they don't care about the methodology that produce the insights, right? I mean, when a data scientist explains why they chose a random forest over logit, the business expert is silently saying, I don't care how you got to the answer. Can you please just tell me the answer now and what it means for my revenue targets? And to add to this all, there is a timeline and metrics mismatch. The business expert needs a decision by the, say Monday, because the new marketing campaign launches Monday. The AI expert wants 3 more weeks to improve model performance by 2%. Neither timeline is wrong, but they are just incompatible. So what happens? The both groups end up talking past each other in the most predictable way. The AI experts think that the business people don't appreciate the technical sophistication. The business experts think that AI people are solving academic problems instead of business problems. And it creates this cycle of mutual frustration. AI experts feel their expertise is not being valued. Business experts feel that AI is overhyped because it's not solving my problems. And the tragedy is that the both groups are right in their own context. The AI experts are correct that good models require careful technical work, and the business experts are correct that business value should drive technical decisions. But without effective communication, you never get the best of both worlds. You actually get the worst. So let me, take some examples and talk about what happens when the languages don't translate. So on the left is what AI experts say, that he said, she said. So it translates into what AI expert said and what business expert heard. So when AI expert is saying our model achieved 94% accuracy with low bias variance, the business is hearing, oh, we have built something great, technically impressive. That's all they get. Or when we talk about feature importance and strong correlation, again, they are at loss. They're like, okay, good work. Or when we say we need to address data drift and model degradation, what the business guy is thinking, okay, it doesn't work consistently. On the flip side, when business experts are telling me that, okay, I need to increase retention by 15%, I think, okay, I'll build the best churn prediction model there is, right? When they talk about increasing the operational efficiency, we start thinking about optimization algorithms. And this is the worst one. The business says, I want more actionable insights. And then we start giving them more dashboards and more reports. Let me, take two real life examples from my personal experience. The first one is the simplest one, right? The customer churn prediction, something most of us have done when we started our career. This is not the kind of work we do anymore. We do the higher end work now. So this was a simple situation. The customer churn need to be addressed. The AI team delivered a sophisticated model with very high accuracy, and they gave the business for each customer a score from 0 to 100 normalized, and okay, and that was it. But business was not able to use it. I mean, in retail, they were not used to applying scores on a day-to-day basis. It's not like the cutoff above which your loan application, below which your credit card will not be approved, right? We all know the CIBIL scores. But in how to use a churn score was something that they were not able to understand. And even though the model was great, without say the cost benefit analysis, that if you don't give these kind of offers or spend X amount of money on marketing campaigns for people whose churn score is above 80, this is the amount of revenue you would lose. So without that kind of cost benefit analysis or actionable recommendations, this model never saw the light of the day. The second example here is the payroll optimization. This is a situation where, and I think it was almost 18 years ago. So in retail, after the cost of goods sold, one of the biggest expense items is the store's payroll, right? Now, if a retailer has, say, $4 billion of store payroll, even 0.1% improvement can make a lot of difference in the bottom line. So they wanted to improve the payroll or reduce the payroll spend. And let me just take a step back and explain to you how complicated payroll is. So payroll is linked to sales. And why is it linked to sales? Is because when there are higher sales in a store, you need more store team members, right? I mean, think of a general merchandise store where you have regular items on the shelf like cereals, and you have clothes and you have toys. So when you have more footfalls, more people are trying clothes that need to be folded or hung back on the rack. When more people are buying cereals, the shelves are getting empty very fast. So some more team members are needed to move the stuff back from the back room to the shelf. And then, of course, there is the checkout lanes, right? I mean, if you have more people buying stuff, there are that many number needs to be checked out, and nobody wants to wait in a 20 customer long queue. So you also open, all your 40 checkout counters in one go, which means again you need to have more team members. So which means higher sales automatically translates into higher payroll. So one of the important inputs to payroll optimization is a sales forecast model. In addition to that, when the payroll is designed, it kind of directly links it to the sales, but that's not the reality, right? Depending upon what kind of items a store is selling more, the payroll can differ. So if a store is selling more of soft goods, you need really higher payroll to account for the higher sales. Whereas if I'm selling more of consumables, then I'm not folding and hanging things back on the rack. I'm just moving stuff from back room to the front. That is a different kind of payroll needed. So this team took everything into account. Even time and motion studies were done. And then the payroll model came out. Now you have to understand how the payroll gets utilized. So let's say I'm a store that is given $100,000 based for the week based on my sales forecast, and some other stores is given the same amount because our forecasts are the same, and I end up getting more sales from my store. I can ask for more payroll, and company will not say no, because more sales everybody welcomes and nobody wants customers to be unhappy. But if the other store actually delivers less than $100,000, they can't give their payroll back because they have already scheduled the team members for the week. So they will end up consuming their $100,000 while I will ask for more because I am showing more sales and I will get. So to account for all this new model optimization algorithm was developed. It took months of work and it was good. It worked really well on paper. But because it was complicated, people couldn't understand that why instead of getting $100,000, now I'm suddenly getting $80,000. And store managers just didn't buy it. We underestimated the change management angle of this particular exercise. So while we spent months building a near perfect optimization algorithm, it never saw the light of the day. It was quite heartbreaking. Okay, so to really understand why this kind of communication breakdown happens, where our best work doesn't get implemented, let's just get a little more deep inside the data scientist mind. So the thinking patterns of data scientists are fundamentally different than how most business folks think. So data scientists live in the world of probabilities and confidence intervals. So when they say I'm 95% confident that churn will increase by 15 to 18%, they're not being wishy-washy. They are being statistically precise. This is how data scientists have been trained to think. Uncertainty isn't a weakness to hide. It's a crucial information to communicate. Data scientists are obsessed with methodology, and for good reason, right? We all know garbage in equals garbage out. So data scientists consistently think of data quality, sampling bias, feature engineering. And now the data is much cleaner, but when I started, we used to spend weeks cleaning the data before we could build a model. And it was not procrastinating, it was preventing future disaster. The brains are also wired to think in terms of correlations, distribution, model performance. Data scientists see patterns where everybody else is seeing chaos. So when they look at customer data, they don't say, oh, Iqbal bought a coffee, right? But they are looking at which SKU, at what price, what is the date and time stamp, what was the discount given, is there a seasonal adjustment factor, right? I mean, they are looking at all that. They are looking at things that a normal business person is probably not seeing. So everything gets filtered through an analytical rigor, right? Before they make a claim, they want to understand the statistical significance, check for confounding variables, validate on holdout data. And this is not perfectionism. This is a professional responsibility of a data scientist. And then this is the mind part, and then there is the communication style, right? We all know that data scientists love to lead with methodology, right? We used a gradient boosting algorithm with 5-fold cross validation because in data scientist world, the methodology determines whether you should trust the conclusion. But to a business person, it's like being told how watch is being made. They just want to know the time. They don't care how it works. Then they also qualify everything with statistical caveats and limitations. So we will tell them, okay, tell business this data based on the data from 2001 to 2005, assuming current market conditions stay stable, not accounting for the competition responses. I mean, yes, all this is honest and scientifically appropriate, but it drives business people crazy. They need confident recommendations to take, decisions. Technical terminology is not jargon to data scientists, right? It's precision. When they say heteroscedasticity, they're not trying to sound smart. They're describing a specific data problem that affects the model reliability. But if every other sentence has such, term, then the business audience starts to feel excluded. So, and last but not the least, data scientists, and I'm guilty of that, love to provide comprehensive analysis with multiple charts, detailed methodology explanations, extensive supporting evidence. The hypothesis, the methodologies, the results, the limitations. In data scientist world, this builds credibility, but in a business meeting, people are already mentally checking out before we even get to the actual insights. Now, let's understand the business team reality and see how they approach problems, because while their thinking patterns are just as logical as a data scientist, it's very different. So first, the business teams live in the world of deadlines and decisions, right? Any analysis they ask for is because a decision is waiting to be made, whether to launch this new product line, which market to enter, when to enter, how to allocate this budget. So the analysis always has a reason, and they want to use that analysis as soon as possible to drive immediate concrete actions. Their lens is very different. Their lens or filtration is outcomes, right? So what is the revenue impact? What is the impact on the margins? How will customer experience change? Does this solve an operational problem? What changes? Who's responsible? And this surprises data scientists because business teams say, I'm comfortable with directional guidance rather than statistical precision. So they would like a quick analysis that tells them 3 possible reasons for something so that they can start working on something, then wait 3 weeks to get a near perfect answer that, oh, we are 99% confident that this is the reason that Northeast customers are behaving differently. Business believes in general that making a pretty good decision quickly is better than making a perfect decision too late. And it's not because they don't want accurate decisions. It's because in their world, markets move, competitors act, opportunities expire. So what they actually want to hear, when they ask what is the data showing, they don't want to hear what exactly it is showing, right? I mean, they don't want to look at the averages and mean and medians and more. What is the data showing means, what should we do? They want recommendations, not just plain insights. So instead of saying that customer satisfaction scores are declining in the mobile app category, if we tell them that problem is with the mobile checkout process, and if fixed, the satisfaction scores will go up by say 20%, that's something they can work on. But just hearing that it is declining in the mobile app category doesn't give them something to act on. They also, while they want confidence levels, they don't want statistical confidence, right? Instead of saying that we are 95% confident this will work, they want to hear how will they know if it is not working, and what is the risk of it not working, how much is going to cost the business if the decision is not the correct one. Then everything has to be connected to their goals. So all the insights that the data scientist team provides should be connected to a final goal, right? I mean, if they're worried about acquisition costs and I am belaboring about customer lifetime value, unless I can show that this particular group of people have higher acquisition cost, but they have much higher CLTV and hence higher acquisition cost is justified, I should not be talking about a different metric, right? So I have to talk about everything in the context of what their goal is. And then finally, there is a timeline and resource reality. I gave an example of the payroll one, and I have many more such examples. So business wants recommendations that fits their operational reality. If something requires integrating data from five different sources, which doesn't happen today, the solution is not going to be useful for them. So I will quickly wrap up this section. In summary, there is a language mismatch, there is a detail overload, and there is a context gap. These three are causing the communication challenges, which are very frustrating for both the parties. I'm going to take a water break here. Okay. So in addition to the communication challenges, there is another layer to the problem. It's not about just our mindset, just the data scientist mindset or the language part. It is also sometimes the lost in translation because I didn't choose the right data or I didn't choose the right visualization. And let me talk about each of those. The first one is the data selection problem. And thankfully, this happens far lesser than the visualization problem. And the visualization one is actually easier to solve. So here is a pattern I see constantly. Analysts default to whatever data is easiest to access rather than what's relevant to the business question. I mean, if I have spent months building expertise in transactional data, I start to approach every business question through that lens. It's like the old saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So let me share an example. An e-commerce retail company wanted to understand why customer retention is declining. The data science team immediately pulled G4 data, bounce rates, page views, session duration. Why? It's clean, real-time, easy to query. Weeks were spent analyzing which product pages had the highest exit rates. Meanwhile, the retention issue was rooted in the shipping delays and the customer service quality. Now that data is not easily accessible, right? It lives in fragmented systems like logistic platform or support tickets and requires a lot of manual cleanup and integration. But the team was used to one kind of data and they focused only on that. Then there is the statistical significance versus business relevance. I just talked about it, but I'll just give an example here, right? We end up sometimes focusing on the technical teams, focus on patterns that are mathematically interesting rather than business relevant. A data sciences team discovered that customers who view product videos are 23% more likely to make a purchase. And it was highly statistical significant. I think the p-value was like less than 0.001. So based on this, the recommendation was that the company should invest heavily in the video content. However, what they missed, and this was the business relevance part, that less than 2% of the customers actually watch the videos. And the cost of producing videos for that 80,000 plus SKUs catalog would be enormous. So the statistical significant correlation was there, but it could not be converted into business impact because the implementation cost was very high. Then there are some common missteps. Even when I have the right data, I can still make some mistakes as a data scientist. The first one is aggregation when granularity matters, right? I mean, for instance, if I am saying that customer satisfaction increased 8% overall, without informing the business that it dropped for segment A by 15% and increased by 12% in the segment B, they can't really act on this. But if they see that, okay, the different segments are behaving differently with the granular insights, they can act on it. So aggregating when granularity matters is one of the common misstep. The second one is historical versus real-time relevance. I mean, we all love a lot of data, right? We would love to have 5 years of data to do time series analysis. And I'll give an example from 2008 during subprime lending. We had to build a model and the team, as usual, took multiple years of data because it was there. And the data was not showing what was actually happening. What had happened because of the subprime lending crisis, customers were had reduced the number of trips to the stores. They were buying in order to save on gas money, and they were buying bigger pack sizes because they were economical. But this shift had happened just in the last few weeks, whereas we were using last 5 years of data because it was available. Of course, whatever we were recommending, the business was saying it's make no logical sense because that's not what I'm saying. So historical versus real-time relevance of the data needs to be checked. Then correlation where causation exists. This is very interesting, right? A lot of times, all the statistical folks would like to say this is just correlation. A correlation doesn't drive causation. But I have seen a lot of times we end up presenting causation data in the way it sounds that it is just correlated, and then business doesn't act on it. So there was in an HR analytics team presented a finding saying that employees who complete optional leadership training programs have better performance at work. And they had some number, I think 20%, 30%, I don't remember the metric. So leadership was like, yeah, this is interesting, but high performing people usually tend to opt for trainings, selection bias. So they said, okay, this is fine. This is This is a correlation, and they ignored it. But what the data sciences team had forgot to share was that they had looked at the longitudinal data. They had seen the employee performance before the training and after the training. So it's the same person, right? But if the performance is changing pre and post an event, it is nothing to do with their basic traits or characteristics, which means the training had a role to play in increasing the performance. And because they didn't share this insight, they shared it as a correlation. The leadership missed the opportunity, right? I mean, if that insight was shared, the company would have made the trainings mandatory, increase the training budget, prioritize training and performance improvement strategies, but that did not happen. A really missed opportunity. Then the data dump. We like to share, every data point instead of showing the very relevant metrics. I call this the dashboard syndrome. 20 different charts because the data exists, not because all these 20 charts are needed to make the decision, but we want to be thorough, just throw everything in the PowerPoint and share with them. But for business, they just get lost in this sea of supporting data. Part of this problem is the visualization, which is where once we get the data right as well, we can end up presenting the things in a way that business doesn't understand. And it is very frustrating because, and I have talked to very senior leaders recently, and they're saying that, I have the best talent and I know that what they are sharing makes sense, but I just can't get to the conclusion because I'm not able to make sense of the data. So wrong chart for the right data. I have seen presentations where data scientists have used box plots with confidence intervals, and the business executives are squinting at the whiskers and quartiles and wondering what they're supposed to do with this. So data scientists, tend to optimize charts for technical accuracy than business clarity. Like, I mean, how many of us are guilty of creating scatter plots with regression lines, error bars, mathematically perfect, but business audience is thinking, just tell me if there is a relationship or not. They can't figure it out from the scatter plot. Then the metric soup, right? Dashboard with 23 different charts, 72 KPIs, color-coded heat maps, multiple filtering options. Now, it is very good for somebody like me who loves to do her own analysis. I like to apply different filters, look at different numbers. So yes, it's somebody like me who loves comprehensive visibility would love this metric soup. But when the business user opens it, they get really overwhelmed because there is no visual hierarchy, no clear story. It's just like a wall of data at them. So these kind of dashboards are built for people who love to explore, but these dashboards don't communicate, right? So if somebody needs to communicate, then the data has to be presented in a way that the message comes across right away. So let me give you some examples of the missed opportunities in this scenario. So like using static tables when trends would make a difference. How many of you have seen reports where we are saying current quarter, current year, last year, year to date? But that doesn't help. Sometimes all we need is a trend line to see whether there is an acceleration or deceleration of that metric. Sometimes percentages are not the best thing. We may need absolute numbers. I mean, if I know what is the count of customer complaints going up, which means how many more employees I will need to take these customer complaint calls. Percentage alone may not give me how big the problem is. So saying that the customer complaints went up by 15%, or versus we are getting 150 more complaints every day. Now suddenly the customer service team is like, they know that they are overwhelmed. So it is the same data, but one version connects to operational reality. And then chart titles that say um, customers customer lifetime value distribution by quintiles. Why? Just put the insight on the top. Our most valuable customers are worth 5x more than the average. It's the same chart, but one version requires person looking at it to look at the chart and derive this insight. In another case, the insight is on the top. So the biggest, missed opportunity is failing to use the right visuals to tell a story. In creating charts that lead the viewer through a logical progression. Here's the problem, here's what we discovered, here what it means, and here what we should do. Let's not create charts that dump information and expect the audience to construct their own narrative. So we have heard about the communication challenges, we have heard about the data selection problem and the visualization issue. But why this problem is persisting, right? I mean, we are talking about well-intentioned people, very smart people, but why they keep falling into the same patterns? So there are 4 causes for it. First is the hiring, onboarding, and training gaps. The problem begins in our hiring process. We hire data scientists based on their ability to build neural networks, optimize algorithms, interview process is a technical problem solving, coding challenges, and I'm still using coding challenges. I'm guilty of it still. Nobody asked these people, to explain during the interview process that how would you explain a complex finding to a room full of, say, marketing managers. So we are hiring for one skill and then we are surprised that they don't possess the other one. Then there is a massive gap between formal education and business needs that we ignore during onboarding. See, the data science programs teach students to present findings to other data scientists, right? And they all share a vocabulary, a methodology appreciation, statistical background. But when we put these graduates in front of stakeholders, the communication will break down because they never practice that. Then most technical teams also don't know that how different businesses consume data. The way for the same report, a CFO would look at it very differently and a marketing director would look at it very differently. But we don't teach this difference to our data scientists. And we expect that they will figure it out on the job. The second one is the project management failure. We expect that AI projects would follow STLC lifecycle, right? But it is not like that. It's not like building an app or building a product where I know what should be the features. I have an clear UX. I'm sorry, can you mute yourself? So AI projects are not a typical STLC. They don't follow a typical software development lifecycle because there is a lot of iterative process in the analysis. I mean, when you're digging for oil, you don't know where you'll find the oil. You start digging, you make some hypothesis, you try to see whether it will be correct or not correct. But if we treat AI projects where we are saying this is my upfront requirements, these are my specifications, now you deliver a product, it will more likely fail because we may hit a rock layer and may not reach the oil. And then that means we have to change our course, which means we need an iterative loop between the technical and the business team. So it can't be just that business team provides the requirements at the beginning, then technical team disappears for months, and then when they present the results, by the time they have missed the mark, business priorities have shifted, market conditions have changed, and whatnot. So collaboration during analysis is very important, but that's where we end up missing the boat, right? This is the most isolated phase. Data scientists work alone, make assumptions, and business stakeholders who could provide crucial context are kept out of the loop till it's too late. Plus, there is no standardized process for translating technical findings into business language. We don't in any organization there are hundreds of frameworks, but this one framework, one template is missing. There should be some sort of template or framework which teaches or which tells this is how a data scientist team should provide the finding, should share the findings to the business team. Then third one, which is one of the fundamental problems, is the measurement disconnect, right? We measure technical teams on one metric, we measure business teams on another, right? And then we wonder why don't they align? I mean, if I give a sports analogy, one team is playing to score points and one team is trying to demonstrate good sportsmanship, it's not going to work. So you're measuring one team on model performance. I mean, yes, accuracy, precision, recall, these are important metrics, but they are means to an end, not an end in itself. But if I'm measuring a person on the means, I'm saying model accuracy is important. I mean, the modeler will try to increase the accuracy by 2% points, right? Even if the 2% is diminishing marginal impact on the business. But business teams are being measured on revenue, margins, customer satisfaction, market share, growth. Now, these metrics truly matter to the organization, but there are several steps removed from model accuracy kind of metrics. So a model can be technically successful, but business irrelevant, or technically imperfect and business critical. So what's missing are the shared metrics, that would bridge this technical capability and business value. Let's say if we had a simple metric like percentage of recommendations that got implemented or business value per dollar of technical investment. If we track these metrics, then both parties would have a common ground. Then there is a org structure gap. A lot of organizations don't recognize it, but I saw it when I joined Target and was struggling to get the business context, right? I mean, I came from GE, had no idea how retail company functions. I had no idea what merchandising word was. And then I had hired people from similar organization. Nobody knew what retail is. And I was struggling. To understand Target's data. And then one of my partners suggested, in the US side, he suggested that I have a team member who's interested in doing this data analyst role because she wants to be more technical. And basically it was a translator role. This person knew the business because she was in the business, but at the same time, this person wanted to be more like a data scientist. So was also training for that kind of situation. And so we got this ideal bilingual person who could fluently speak both languages. And that this really sped up the work we could do because earlier we were struggling. I mean, they would ask us to do something, but we couldn't do it because the business context was missing. But when this happened, the translation started happening formally and consistently. So and it was a one-off thing, right? A particularly business savvy data scientist can take this role, or a technical inclined business analyst, which was the case, took this role. But in reality, in most organizations, this is nobody's primary job, right? It never gets the attention and development it deserves. And this creates a bottleneck because success of AI initiatives now depends upon finding these rare people who happen to be bilingual in technical and business language. But we can't scale AI this way, right? I mean, we need systematic solutions. So now that we're on solutions, let's talk about the solutions that actually work. So I have seen organizations break through this barrier and very well. And most of them do some version of these four things. So first, since we said hiring and onboarding was the problem, we need comprehensive onboarding programs. Completely rethink onboarding. Instead of just explaining the company's tech stack, have comprehensive programs that include industry landscape, competitive environment, regulatory context, market forces, customer needs. It's not just nice to have background information. It is a business critical context that is needed by the AI teams. So the goal is to help new hires understand not just what the company does, but how it matters in the broader business ecosystem. I mean, if you give me a clustering problem without telling me that a $50 million budget is linked to it, I will approach it in a very different way. But the moment I know that I have to now, that the marketing team is now going to use these new customer segments to allocate a $50 million budget, the entire project dynamic would change. The second is create translation mechanisms, right? I just talked about that translator role so we need successful organizations have either hired or developed these dedicated AI translators. So these aren't not just business analysts who took a Python course or a data scientist who read a business book. These are professionals whose primary job is bridging this technical business divide. Then cross-functional workshops and working sessions. So not just these project kickoffs, okay, and then final presentation, but an ongoing collaboration through analysis and development process. Then last, having some structural communication protocols. It sounds bureaucratic, but it is not. When everyone understands what high confidence or low confidence means, the conversations become far more productive. So what these organizations who are doing better have done right is restructuring collaboration, joint accountability. Instead of having data scientist team that deliver models to business teams who implement them, they create hybrid teams, right? When as a data scientist, my performance review depends upon partly on the business outcomes and the business stakeholders review depends upon technical execution quality, collaboration starts to happen. So again, I talked about, some metrics like percentage of recommendations that got implemented or say time from insight to business action. We need some of these metrics. Then second, agile methodologies, right? How the feedback happens throughout the development process, not just at sprint reviews, but daily work, maybe a 15-minute scrum, something like that. Third, fourth, invest in cross training. Finally, have business literacy programs for AI professionals that include things like how business decisions that actually get made or operational constraints that, what kind of operational constraints exist in this particular process. And even specific trainings focused on technical to business translation, teaching them how to lead with conclusions, use business language, and structure presentations for decision making. At the same time, we need AI literacy programs for business leaders, not to teach them how to code, but about understanding what questions AI cannot answer, how to structure problems for the technical folks, how to interpret AI generated insights, and how to ask technical questions to get the actionable recommendations. When you combine all these four approaches, the translation burden doesn't fall on these few bilingual individuals anymore. The entire organization becomes more fluent in both languages. AI projects start delivering value not because the technology or the talent or the data got better, but because the collaboration got better. So if you invest time and money and effort in doing all these four things, how would you know that it's actually working? So very simple things. In the short term, you will see an increase in frequency and quality of AI and business team interactions. And I don't mean more meetings. That is a very bad metric, right? I mean that more productive conversations. We should start hearing business stakeholders asking technical questions and data scientists referring business constraints. Then faster time from project initiation to business requirements. So, a lot of times from the time the project starts and then we take 6 weeks to understand requirements, we will see that this time starts to reduce, that two teams would converge on the problem definitions much faster. And why? Because both teams are getting better at asking and answering the right questions. Then third, when business leaders start saying that I actually understand what they're telling me or the recommendations are actionable, you are on the right track. It's a soft metric, but useful. In the medium term, you will see an increase in percentage of AI projects from POC to production. This is where rubber meets the road. Production deployment is where collaboration really matters. When technical teams understand operational constraints from the beginning, they will build solutions that can actually be deployed. There would also be reduction in time from technical solution to business implementation. So instead of having a technically complete model sitting on the shelf while business teams are figuring out how to implement it or how to operationalize it, we will find faster adoption rates because implementation considerations were built into the design process. Then overall, we'll see the higher rate of adoption of AI generated insights because when business teams trust the analysis, why? They were part of shaping it and recommendations came in the language they could understand, adoption automatically will go up. In the long term, the organization overall will start to see much higher business value being delivered from AI initiatives. They will see that the business leaders at the highest level have more confidence in AI capabilities. Instead of being skeptical about what AI can do, those leaders will start asking what other problems can we apply to. And here's the bonus outcome in the long run: high retention of your AI talent. Why? No AI talent wants to build models for it to sit on the shelves, right? They want to contribute meaningfully to the business impact. They want to solve really important problems. So when they see the direct connection between what they did and how it impacted the business positively, their job satisfaction increases dramatically. And why should you act on it now? I mean, why we are talking about it now? There are two components to it. One is the cost of inaction, right? While we have been talking about this challenge the clock has been ticking, your competitors are solving this problem while you're still struggling with it. Their organization, and I said, I'm telling all this from experience. So some organizations have already done it, and some are right now working on solving this, this cracking the code on technical business collaboration. And they are deploying the AI solutions faster. And here's something that should keep you up at night: your AI talent will leave you for those organizations, right? I mean, if your organization cannot solve this technical business chasm, then and provide meaningful work to the AI team, then the AI team is going to want to do this somewhere else, right? If they can't get satisfaction at their organization, they'll find it elsewhere. And meanwhile, after having spent millions of dollars, the business leaders would ask this question: okay, we have spent $100 million and we still haven't solved these business problems. So money has been spent, talent is leaving, and we are still in the same situation. Here's the opportunity as well. There are still a lot of organizations that are still facing this challenge. It's an industry-wide problem. So 85% failure rate that we talked about, it is there. It still exists for your competition as well. But those who solve this collaboration problem first will gain significant competitive advantage, not because they have better AI technology. Everyone has access to the same algos and tools, but because they can deploy the technology effectively to solve business problems. The competitive advantage is not in the AI itself, but how organization can use it. And here's the beautiful part: the competitive advantage is sustainable because it's about people and processes and not technology. Your competition can always copy your algorithms, they can always hire your talent, and they can buy the same platforms. But building an organizational culture and collaboration capabilities, that takes time, commitment, and systematic effort. It can't be copied overnight. Unlike other competitive advantages that require massive capital investment or rare technical breakthroughs, this one is accessible to only those organizations who are willing to invest in their people and processes. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Iqbal. First of all, great presentation. And one observation I want to make as a true data scientist, we said you will present, or rather you said you will present for 1 hour, and you are accurate to the dot within the confidence interval. So, yeah, so thanks. I really liked the way you started with the 3 pillars, and it indeed is a paradox that you got. In fact, whichever way we look at it, today the technical capabilities, be it of the people, be it of the platforms, the models, it's exploding, and the investments, you were saying billions getting into trillions is what is expected, right? So on the other hand, of course, the business expertise there is also there, and the data assets are being generated every second, right? So so obviously the ingredients are all there, but we are not yet there. So it is indeed a paradox. And I get the thrust of what you are saying. Would like to ask you some questions, but before that, I just thought I'll give you, I'll just share some two very, very extreme type of examples, and I will not share from data science field. You shared enough, but just for the audience to relate this. There is a classical statement which an HR leader makes: we do not want any average performers in the company. Haven't we heard that? Now, how will a data scientist respond to it, right? whatever you do, you will have an average performer, right? so, so that is the language gap, in a classical sense. Uh, so let's start from there, and let me just ask you some questions while you have presented very well, but um, a few things which you can throw a little more light on.
Sure.
A lot of thrust in your presentation was about this whole gap, which, like my example also said, that between a data scientist and between the business. And a lot of it is to do with talent, while you alluded to that part. But would like, an IT and Stackroot being a talent organization, I'd like you to throw some more light on how we can develop, especially for the data scientist part, how we can develop data science talent so that they are better aligned with the business outcomes.
So I think I'll use the same solution part of it. We start with reframing the role itself, right? Modify the hiring criteria. We currently, if we include questions like how would you explain a complex model to a CEO who has 5 minutes? Or how would you prioritize 3 different modeling approaches based on business constraints? Then if we ask these kind of questions, then we'll get people who are genuinely interested in the why, okay, behind the technical work. And we also probably should rewrite our data science job descriptions. Instead of just saying build ML models or, run optimization algorithms, we should say solve customer retention challenges or optimize supply chain efficiency. Right now, this puts everything in a business context, and that's what makes the roles also very specific. The second is, as I said, provide business context training, right? Have mandatory training modules that cover industries, economics, competitive landscape, regulatory environment, maybe short-term rotations, right? I mean, instead of getting the data scientist only in the team that you hired them for, have them go through some different business teams as well, so that they get some first-hand idea of how their analysis gets used or even ignored, right? Then the third is build translation skills systematically, right? Provide some formal training in business communication, like how to lead with conclusion, structure presentations for decision making. I'm not saying dumb down the technical side of the things, but how to make the technical work more accessible and actionable to people who are not technical. My friend, she does this storytelling workshops with data. So this is not storytelling just for the sake of it. That how to teach data scientists to build narratives around their findings. Instead of presenting here what the data shows, we can train them to say, here's the business problem, here's what we discovered, here what it means for you, and here's what we recommend you do. I also talked about hybrid performance metrics. I will not spend too much time on that again. What I'm trying to say is that this is not about teaching data scientists to be less technical. It is teaching them to be technical in service of business outcomes. Actually, the most effective data scientists that I've seen are who are deeply technical and deeply understand how their work creates value. This takes time, lot of effort, but organizations that invest in it will see dramatic improvements in the AI project success rate. And I already talked about it, that how the data scientists will become more engaged because they can see the impact of their work. Business teams will become more supportive. And entire organizations will become better at turning data into decisions. The goal is not to turn data scientists into business analysts. It's to develop data scientists that can think like business strategists while maintaining their technical excellence. I hope this answers.
Yeah, this does, and I'll just quote what you said in your original presentation here. If you hire for one skill and then you are surprised why you do not have a different skill, I'll just expand it with what you are saying now, that you train for one skill and then expect that you'll perform different skill. Is a problem in the model, and the point is that I think this need is very sharp today. It was probably there always, but it is becoming sharper, and therefore, as you are saying, time to act is now. Moving to The second aspect which you spoke about, which was about the abstract requirements, and therefore uh, it does not lead to, I mean, there are translational difficulties. The business language could be right from their perspective, but vague from, say, a data scientist perspective. Uh, can you share an example where such unclear goals made it hard to turn business needs into actionable technical strategies, and it led to a failure? Any specific example which comes to mind from your
It was
experience?
e-commerce retail company. I think it is not a big one. I think $100 million in revenue. And business stakeholders were frustrated with declining customer satisfaction scores, and they wanted AI to fix it. So they asked their data sciences team to improve customer experience using AI. But the problem definition was vague. I mean, improve customer experience can mean so many things. Faster checkout, better product recommendations, reduced wait time, dozen of things, right? So they didn't provide that problem definition. There were no success metrics. They didn't say what does the improvement look like? Would it be the increase in satisfaction scores? Would it be the increase in repeat purchases? Would it be in the reduction of complaints? And the context was missing. So AI experts didn't understand which touch points were frustrating the customers most, right? So data scientists built a recommendation engine. Technically good, but the problem was somewhere else entirely. It was the website loading time during the peak hours. It was a more of an operational challenge. And data scientists team didn't even look at it because this was not something on their radar. And 6 months of work, not 6 months, sorry, 6 weeks of work resulted in 2% improvement in the click-through rates. Not at all useful, right? I mean, the customer satisfaction was still the challenge. So without clear specific goals, even best of the teams will solve the wrong problems.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that example. Just a follow-up to that. So what are some practical ways which you have seen in your experience where you can align the domain experts and data scientists around the ROI and around the resource utilization, which are the two problems you highlighted as a result of this conversation? So can we align people to these aspects? Have you seen that working somewhere?
So remember I talked about statistical significance versus business relevance. So ROI is very important for that, right? So
Yeah.
instead of saying reduce churn by X%, we should be talking about what would the 10% reduction in churn mean, right? If the 10% reduction in churn means 2 million more sales, now that's what is a very different context, right? And then when I am as a data scientist building the solution, then I know that, okay, we are talking about $2 million revenue translates into this much profit, translates into this is the maximum cost I can incur, right? So ROI is very important. Then secondly, we should also break, projects into phases, right? I mean, everything costs money. So in when we are asking for budgets for, big AI implementations or even small AI projects, we should be very clear how much we are willing to spend for the exploratory stage versus POC. So break projects into phases with increasing investments. Say 10K for exploration, 50K for POC, and once the POC is successful, then full production investment only after we see some business value. And of course, keep tracking your recommendations implemented and time from insight to action kind of metrics as well. So this is for the ROI alignment. Resource utilization, I think we should have domain folks also in sprint planning so that they can help prioritize features based on business impact. So if I get 20 things that I need to come out of this AI exercise, I need to know what is the priority from a business perspective. Also, as data scientists, we should also have some clear trade-off conversations, right? That we can improve model accuracy by 5% in 2 more weeks, or we can provide you that regional analysis and make trade-offs very explicit so that business stakeholders can choose what they want. And then I used to have some of these dashboards, and my analytics team didn't like it at all. But finally, they got used to it, like percentage of resources spent or percentage of business value delivered. Because this is important. We should all be working towards a common goal. We can't just be working to keep ourselves busy or build the most great model. So have regular checkpoint discussions about whether current resource allocation makes sense, and from ROI point of view, and if ROI projections change, we should be willing to pivot as well.
Yep, great answer. Yeah, of course, um, an alignment on the right metrics is a great step towards achieving the same goal. And ROI and resource utilization could be two very, very important examples of there. Let me move to the next part, again, which you highlighted in your presentation. This is about the articulation gap. It's not so much on the understanding, but the articulation gap, which leads to various different issues. So what can organizations do so that data scientists truly understand the business problem being addressed?
So I think one part is, of course, having an immersive business context training. Okay. I have personally offloaded cartons in store backroom, have spent a week in distribution center, and countless hours just listening in on category management meetings like a fly on the wall. This helped build me a perspective that no amount of structured training could have provided me. So we need something like this for our data scientists, right? Spend time in customer service, sales calls, if possible, field operations to understand the operational realities. Then they should be with the business. We should have these joint sessions to structure the problem, like customer churn is high. High value customers are leaving after poor service experiences. Two, response time spike during peak hours because we can't predict demand. In G, we used to call it the 5 whys. So keep asking the why till you reach what is the problem you actually can solve and provide actionable insights for.
Great. Yeah. So the related thing, and in your presentation, you already highlighted this point, but I just wanted to probe you further on that. So you talked about the role of translators or having a team of translators, which is the bridge between the business domain experts and the technical experts on the other side. At the same time, you are also speaking about having a literacy program, a business literacy for technical team and a tech literacy for the business team. Why do you think if we do the second one, let's say we do the business literacy and the tech literacy, will that not be enough? Why will the team of translators help further if, let's say, we take care of the second part?
I think the second one, as I said, takes time, right? It won't happen overnight. So when I gave the target example where this particular team member was willing to be the translator, we did not need the translator role eventually in that team, right? Because then both sides of the teams got pretty good at it. But with certain other teams, merchandising, we continue to need it because merchants were very clear. I cannot spend my mornings talking to the India team. They were very clear about that. I said, I walk into my office, I need to look at my numbers, I need to take action. So there is no way I have 2 hours every day in my calendar to talk to the India team. So they continue to rely on these translators. So again, it also depends upon what kind of the business teams we are talking on the other side. So I personally believe that initially when you're in the norming forming stage of the teams, then and the maturity of the AI teams is low in terms of the business context, translator roles are very effective. Later on, as both teams mature, maybe some teams will not need it, but some teams will continue to need it. And it's because they provide a shared vocabulary, right? They can provide bi-directional translation, business to technical, technical to business. Okay, these translator roles, they understand the business constraints, like we didn't know that there is a limit to how many times a customer could be contacted in a month. Okay, but they also did not know that in order to build my model I need X number of examples per category. So this was the translator role when we started this in Target. So the translators can help prevent technically perfect solutions that are operationally impossible, but they can also prevent business requirements that are technically infeasible. Going back to it, you definitely need it in the initial stages, and later on you can take a call if you want to completely do away with these translators or keep them in some teams or move them to the new teams that are being formed. But in terms of ROI, I feel that translator role really helps speed up the process from project initiation to business value. They don't just solve communication problems, they solve collaboration problems.
Yeah, indeed they do. And thanks for that answer. As I see that, um, translator can act faster. The other part will take time. That's one problem. And second is it simply may not be possible in some context. So it's not one size fits all.
Yes.
Not all business people will be either having time or inclination or even aptitude to be aligned with technical part. I was also thinking from our experience in the software developer world, there is a role of what we used to call it requirement engineer earlier, and later on business analyst. It does something similar, but one main difference is that that's one-way translation. It's translating a business into technical. Because in software development, the reverse is not that important. But the key thing is in data science, two-way communication is very important, and that's where this role becomes a very, very empowered role compared to a one-way translator. We this topic which we have, while we want to focus a lot on data science, but the other aspect we wanted to cover here was working in GCC, and you are coming with a huge experience in setting up data science practices in GCCs. So let me switch to some questions on that side now. Now, today GCCs, as you can see, I mean, they are just exploding. They are increasing. The number of GCCs in India are increasing, as well as the size of GCCs are increasing, and with some of the latest things going on around H1B restrictions and the costs, etc. Basically, any commentary you see looks like that will only accelerate, right? So let's just talk about GCC, and let's talk about the retail industry as the topic of this particular session. GCCs do come here because of the geographical advantages, but then that brings certain problems that both sides, besides this problem of the data science versus business, there is an additional layer of problem of the geographical changes, the understanding each other's geographical constructs and the socio-cultural constructs between the GCC and the parent organization. And especially that will be more pronounced for the newer employees, the younger employees who are maybe those who have been working in a GCC for a couple of years will know the context, but the younger employees will lack that context. What can be done to help the newer workforce joining GCCs to develop the insights which will help them serve their customers more effectively?
So I think it is the same immersive business context training that I've talked about, because it's not easy to understand the operational or geographic or socio-cultural differences without experiencing them in some form. Like, I had personally no idea how complicated the processes and operations of a distribution center are, even though I had attended a lot of online and offline trainings. But spending 7 days inside a distribution center, I realized that solutions we were all thinking of cannot be implemented because there were current process challenges, there were technology challenges. Now, I'm not saying that we spend every employee to the parent organization's country and say, okay, you are spending 7 days in a DC and you are spending 5 days in a store. I mean, that will, the cost is going to be prohibitive. But now you have virtual reality, right? I can take a virtual reality tour of a store and, house, like, just to give you an idea, there is a track, right? A race track, as it's called, where the merchandise is kept in the store. And there is a reason certain things are on end caps and certain things are in the centers. So, but I cannot visualize it unless I have been inside a store. I mean, pictures don't do justice. But when you are doing a VR tour, right, then you can really now try to see what a customer sees or feels, right? What a kid sees So having the toys at a lower shelf, why is it important, and why toys should be next to electronics? All that stuff is something you can see through a virtual reality tour. You can have videos of how distribution centers are working. You can listen in on call of unhappy customers easily. So there are ways we can provide this virtual immersive training. And I think the second thing is also spending time and energy on making these young employees understand the different customer persona and their behaviors, like how different are baby boomers versus Gen X versus Gen Z, and how they shop across markets, how economic conditions in different regions affect purchasing behavior. This will build over time. Okay. As you know, the two organizations, the parent org and the GCC employees work together, but we need to keep this in mind and have some structured trainings as well. And then have some real time context building, right? Every Friday, have a brown bag session where you talk about economic changes that are impacting the customer behavior or competitor moves, or spend time explaining what Black Friday is, what happens, show them videos. Like, unless you have been there on Black Friday or have seen videos of how customers just break everything and enter the store, you can't understand how important Black Friday is for a retailer. So yeah, so there is a lot of context buildings that can be done informally as well.
Yes, and this just reminds me of my very first trip to US was just a week before Black Friday. And so it was a great time for me to do shopping to set up my home there. And so I can relate to what you are saying, that was my first shock which I got there as to, how can there be so much queue there outside the stores and so on.
You know, we
It's
did
rare,
one we did
a
this one
rare.
project where we determined the potential sales from a store based on how many cars were parked in the parking lot using the some kind of data from the satellite. So it was very interesting.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I just remember that as one of the rare days I got up at 4 a.m. or something like that. I'm not a early riser otherwise, because everybody told me after that it doesn't, and I knew that was true. Anyway, this is like, about 25 years back. Coming back to the GCC construct. So we talked about the geographical and the socio-cultural aspects, but that's not the only difference, right? So there are differences uh, in the work styles itself, right? There is a work style change, the priorities which are different, the styles of communications itself are different between the headquartered and the GCCs. Any thoughts on how do we address these? And this might be true not just for the new people coming in, but also for the existing people.
So I think it depends upon the experience of the parent company are they specific, are they located in only one geography? So I work for organizations that have only been focused on one part of US versus organizations that had employees worldwide, because that's how they were. And of course, the maturity of the GCC team. So if GCC is in the beginning stages of its maturity, and when it comes to things like business context or working with that geography, both sides will need to put effort. I mean, so I started working in analytics space with US companies, and that's what I did for a big part of my life. And then I started working for a UK headquartered company. Trust me, the styles are very different. The cultural differences are there. In fact, even within US, I was initially working for East Coast, then I moved to Midwest. I had absolutely no idea, because I was very used to this, to the point, in your face. You can say, I mean, Midwest would call them rude people from East, and I was very happy. And they were my people. And then I come to Midwest, and I'm like, they're very polite, but they say one thing and nothing happens, right? They didn't want to be in my face when they said no. And then even within US, when I moved from up Midwest to down South, then again things changed. The meetings which were set for 45 minutes will go on for 1.5 hours. I mean, but that's their style. So I needed to learn every single time. Another one, but then I worked for a company which is South American company, but it has through acquisitions and organic growth, it has branches all over the world, and they are very different. Like, they would lapse into Portuguese in the middle of a meeting, and I'm like, is it allowed? He was like, yeah. So they didn't care that we were speaking in Kannada or Tamil because it's part of their culture. They are, that's okay. We can speak any language we want. So some of this learning, majority of this probably happen with time and experience. But I also feel, I used the word bureaucratic earlier. I realized it may feel bureaucratic, but no, we need to provide some structured insights on working styles. I remember way back in 90s, late 90s, Infosys started working with Japanese companies, and they used to have this specific training how to behave in a meeting. In first meeting, what you do and not do, what to say, what not to say. I mean, things like that. So I think it is possible. If Infosys could do it in late 90s, we can do it today. I was guilty of getting into these meetings with the US team and immediately start talking about my model and all, and then I realized that it doesn't work. I mean, I'm not able to build rapport. And then over time, then I said, oh, I need to talk about weather a little bit and I need to talk about the Super Bowl. And that's how it happened for me. But I wish somebody had told me this. So at the same time, I feel it should be bi-directional. So my spouse still works for a retailer GCC, and he spent time building this presentation educating the US teams that how the people in India work. I mean, in my time, we didn't like to say no to our US counterparts, even if it was technically infeasible or we were not able to deliver the project in those timelines. And they learned it the hard way. But I think we should also provide this from our side to them. Okay, what are our working styles? What are the things that you should watch out for? That we are not going to say no, even if it is not possible. So I guess it works both ways, but we need to put in some effort in creating some sort of structured programs.
By the way, since you mentioned, I was in Infosys those days. I was actually part of the people who created that program there, not for Japan though, but I'm talking about for US. And in fact, when I went to US, I went through a holistic training like this, where I recall, for example, one of the tips given was in office, do not wear white socks. I didn't know why, but I realized it later. Right. So anyway, yeah, Infosys has been pioneer in some of these things earlier. Simple things, but the impact and the ROI is quite high.
Yes.
Continuing on the same theme, one thing which people have tried is to put the data science inside the business teams for the alignment, right? Just wanted to know your thoughts. I mean, that intuitively that will be helpful, but at the same time, in that case, how do you ensure that the data scientist remain a true data scientist? Because that's the core capability for which he or she is there, right? So how do we address that?
So it is inevitable that once your data scientist teams mature and they are ready to work on more complicated problems, they need to work closely with the business. Right? Initially, having the analytics center of excellence and data quality center of excellence makes sense because there are lesser number of people. They are still solving the low hanging fruits, which means the business context is not extremely complex. The problems can be thrown off the wall and we can pick it up and solve for it. But after we have done it for a few years, right, and the low-hanging fruits are all, majority been taken care of, we will move to the next level of problems. And at that point in time, the org structures will need to change, which means I need to work more closely with my merchant team, or you need to work more closely with your store operations team. And it cannot happen if we are both sitting in this center of excellence. So yes, this needs to happen and it comes with its challenges. But if we have done things right, if we have put certain things in place, then the data sciences part of the capability will continue to thrive. So one is building communities of practice, right? uh, even before we change the org structure in the companies that I work for, like from center of excellence to business aligned teams, I had instituted these monthly sessions where everybody was supposed to share their technical challenges or solutions, regular presentations on techniques, new techniques, tools, or how to apply this particular methodology. Senior data scientist in store operations team would mentor somebody in merchandising. And the same thing can happen even if you are not part of the same COE kind of structure. Then second, technical training was always centralized. It was not being done separately by the business teams. I mean, they can't do it, right? They don't have that expertise. So having centralizing the technical training is also helpful. And if it is possible that having common technical stack, which is 9 out of 10 times is the case across the business teams is also useful. Then matrix org structures help, right? I mean, if we have a core data scientist team, a technical team whose job is to say review the work of the different data scientist teams sitting in the business, provide a framework for cross-functional, technical review across common approaches to model validation or data quality, create shared repositories of technical knowledge. So, I mean, if there is some small centralized team and the data scientists sitting in the business organizations have dotted line into this team, and they also have a say in their performance rating, that can also work.
Great. Yeah. So some sort of a metrics with
Yes.
Both sides playing. Yeah, very, very important. Okay, so that brings me to the last question, and that's not going to be a very surprising question today. Anywhere you go, the most important thing is AI, and one area which is very interesting for people like me is how AI itself is changing roles. And we are talking about data scientist here, right? So, while data scientist is playing a role in newer sense here, AI products, AI solutions, but AI is changing how data scientists need to work. So, for example, AI can do data cleaning for you. Let's say Python, you can use AI to code in that. In fact, uh, I haven't coded. I mean, I used to code long back, but probably last 15 years I never coded. But recently I wrote Python code using
Yes.
a tool because I wanted to try something, and I was successful without any help from any human. So, so I was pretty thrilled about that. Um, and we have AutoML, right, which can automate machine learning. In this context, what should data scientists be doing? I mean, should they worry about their jobs? Will AI take over data scientist job? Where is the truth here? I wanted to know your perspective.
I think these job displacement fears are overblown. Let me elaborate why. So first, automation actually helps data scientists create higher value work, right? AutoML handles routine model building, but data scientists are still needed to frame the right business questions. Automated data cleaning tools are there, but understanding why this data is dirty, how it can be fixed, still requires human judgment. I mean, calculators didn't eliminate mathematicians, right? So, and then there is a last mile problem. AI tools can generate the code, but they can't determine if that code solves the right business problem. AutoML can build models, but it can't explain it to a business stakeholder or a CEO that why these models matter. And I think automation handles the technical execution, human handle the strategic thinking. Let's look at what is being automated, right? Routine data pre-processing and cleaning, standard model architectures, hyperparameter tuning, your EDAs, your visualizations, right? I mean, now I don't need to get better at visualization. AutoML will do for me, and some code generation for common analytical tasks. But what AutoML cannot do is problem definition, right? They can't define the problem or interpret the business context. Data strategy, they cannot decide which data to go after, what kind of data would be needed. Model interpretation and business analysis, once the model is ready, they can't do that. They can't communicate to the stakeholder, they can't do the change management, they can't do the bias detection. I mean, one of the problems that we have is that AI, AutoML is biased, right? And they can't do domain specific engineering. This is something that will continue to be done by the data scientists. So what is actually happening is that the data scientist role is evolving from being technicians to strategic partners, from being model builders to problem solvers, from being code writers, and most of us hated code anyway, to being business translators. So we are now no longer data analysts, we are becoming change agents. And I think we should be happy about that. I mean, if we don't have to write code, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, and very well said. So, as I would like to summarize that as, I think there's a lot of routine which AI can take care, but the heavy lifting of translating a business problem
Yeah.
into a data problem, and then a data problem into the kind of model which will work, is still only a data scientist can do. And so, and the good thing is with AI coming in, this work will only increase.
Yes.
I see a very bright future there, but only for those who make the switch, and and that's where this topic comes. Context becomes very, very important, not
Yes.
just the techniques. Without context, the techniques, I think AI can be very good at techniques,
Yeah.
but context is where the human ingenuity comes into picture. With that, while we are toward the end of the time, but this last question as a follow-up to this, I would just wanted to ask, so what in this context, where we are today in terms of AI coming in terms of this context becoming important and many other things which you said, if you have to say 3 or 4 points, which are your key advice to a budding data scientist, uh, what are those?
So my first advice would be embrace the tools. Use AutoML and whatever tools that are available to you to handle your routine tasks faster. And it will allow you now to spend your time on learning strategic skills, right? I mean, you will get time. So why you want to sit and code? And become proficient with this AI assisted coding and analysis. Second, develop business partnership skills, right? Now spend time understanding business operations, not just business metrics. Practice explaining your work in terms of business impact and build relationships and rapport with stakeholders outside the technical organization. Third is look for specialization, right? Category management, financial risk modeling, supply chain optimization. So if you are specializing in a particular domain, you are very valuable. Then look at some cutting edge techniques that are not commoditized yet, right? For which AutoML is not there. And then continue your focus on building those cross functional skills of technical, business, and communication, something that we talked about this entire presentation. Last but not the least, what will set one data scientist apart from another is who is willing to lead the change, right? Help organizations adopt these AI tools effectively rather than resisting them. Don't be the person who doesn't want to use them. Become an expert in these tools, that what can be done, what cannot be done, what can be automated through these tools. Guide your organization through these changes that are required for AI success. The future belongs to those data scientists who can answer, now that we can build models automatically, what should we build and why? And this is very true in GCC environments because ability to bridge technical capabilities with diverse business context becomes a core competitive edge, right? I mean, this is what somebody else cannot copy. So the data scientist who will develop these skills won't just survive the automation wave. You will ride it.
Yeah, indeed, you will thrive. And I will just um, add here that data science has two terms, data and science. I think a lot of data handling tools can do, but the science aspect of that has to be brought by the human. And so data scientists should become more and more of a scientist and less of a data, because data handling capabilities will keep getting automated. Maybe that's the way I can summarize what you said. But this profession will see, I mean, there's a lot of scope there for sure. So thanks a lot. And I think we have a few minutes to take maybe one question from the audience. So anyone has any question for Iqbal, we'll be happy to take that now. You can type on screen, or you can just raise your hand, or you can just unmute and say, anyone amongst the audience. Okay, so I don't see any question coming, and we are also towards the end of our time. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Iqbal. I think I will just say this at the end, that you have given very clearly articulated the success metrics that to in short term, medium term, and long term. I think that's really worthwhile for anybody who's
I think,
interested.
Dr. Bhatt, there is a question.
Okay, so there is a question. Let me read that out.
From Sai Kiran.
Okay, you want to read it out, Gaurav, please? Yeah.
Yes, I will. Hello, as someone who is in a business role, sales, I was wondering how this evolution of the data science affects roles like this. So yeah, somebody in sales, how they can apply data science.
Is that the question? No, I think they are saying that how will the evolution of the data scientist role affect business roles? I think that's my
In the
understanding.
particularly in sales, yeah. Someone who's in sales will say the evolution of the data science role affects role like this.
And I can talk about this from my current role. So we are at iCustomer are building agentic go-to-market solutions for marketing teams, and and sometimes we struggle. You know, some of the team members they don't have the business context, so they are thinking of some features or they are building some features in the app, and they don't realize this is not how a marketing ops person would use the application. So I would say that when the data scientist evolves to understand the business context, then the solutions that the sales team or the marketing team would get will become far more relevant. It will be like and you know this is an insight. I'm not particularly an expert on the B2B marketing because a lot of work we're doing is for B2B marketing as well. This is where my CEO and co-founder comes in and he will say, oh, this is not how the marketing ops person in B2B environment thinks. They think like this. So you can't start from here. This cannot be the workflow and this cannot be the user journey. So I would say that the products and the apps and the solutions that you're getting will become more relevant and meaningful to you.
Okay. Yeah, there's one more question. What data security challenges did you encounter and how did you work around them?
I think it is very company specific, but yes, when you're working in a GCC, there is the security is not a really challenge. Most of us work on thin client, right? So the data cannot be downloaded on machines and stuff like that. So as long as those considerations are in place, there is no challenge. In where currently the role that I am in, we actually work in the client data environment, so there is no movement of the data at all. They give us access through their virtual desktop and other mechanisms, and that's how we circumvent that.
Great. Thanks, Iqbal. I think that's all from everyone. So thanks a lot, Iqbal. Thanks a lot, Dr. Bhatt. It was really very insightful session. A lot of people, I think, will have questions at a later point of time. They can reach out to us through email. But thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me. It was good fun and
Thank you.
fun
Thank
spending
you.
you.
time for preparing it as well. So have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Iqbal. Thanks, Gaurav. Bye. Bye, everyone.